I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Tuesday, October the 30th, where this market is on the upswing in response to last week's higher fat cattle trade, as we're finally starting to see the seasonal rise in your fat cattle market after many weeks of just kind of staying steady, with the packers just using all different kinds of marketing ploys to keep the market at bay. But we finally started seeing it come around, and we did see your cash feeder cattle market respond to that this Monday early. And the board, to an extent, but not too much, and a lot of that has to do with a lot of your speculators and market players changing positions and things like that. But on the board, October live cattle, we're just about done there. We're up 42 cents on Monday to end the day at 114.30. Your out fronts were mostly lower. December was down $1.15 at 117 and a quarter, and really closing the gap between your spot October and your December futures there. November feeder cattle down 90 cents at 153.90, where January was up 12 at 149.82. The weighted average on last week's giant fat cattle movement, huge volume moving, as your sellers have been really neglectant to take the steady money week after week after week, and then finally we saw an uptick in the market. They were ready to move a lot of cattle. Your packers were needing to buy a lot of cattle, and we did have a giant movement, 131,000 in your 5-area feeding region on negotiated cash. That is huge. That compares to 91,700 last week and 110,400 the same week a year ago. But on that big movement, I know we established the market, especially in the Southern Plains, at 115, but your weighted average on live steers ended up at 113.81, still up $3.76 from the previous week's weighted average, and that 115 was $4 higher, so that 376 got most of that. Now your dress trade was even higher, even though we didn't expect that to be, because we'd seen a lot of Northern Plains sales earlier in the week. Well, couldn't have been a lot, because through Thursday they only had 8,000 head moved, but a lot of off sales there, 174, 175, before we finally reached the 180 on Friday with the bulk of the movement on your dress trade. But your dress steers average 179.70. That's significant. That's up $5.86 compared to the previous week's weighted average on dress steers on 21,000 head. That was 45,000 head of steers at that 113.81. Both huge movements. But we did hear some rumors of some 114 on Monday in Iowa, which would be more positive, because they never achieved that really last week. But it didn't come through on mandatory price reporting, so we'll see whether that or not that's true. But I believe it to be true, because it come from an awful good source. But not as much 115 in Kansas as what we might have thought. It was largely 114 in Kansas. Texas was all 115. As I said on the last visit, most all their trade negotiated goes through Consolidated Beef Producers, but had a pretty good movement of 115 in parts of Nebraska, so that was good. But nationwide negotiated trade was 151,300 head. Can't remember the last time we had anything near that. Huge movement, even on the fringes outside the 5-area feeding region, but still a pretty significant trade for that 15 to 30 day delivery, 2 to 4 weeks out there. 45,700 head of that 151,300 was for the 2 to 4 week delivery, which ended up being about 30%, and that's fairly significant, because your packers are wanting to get cattle bought further out front to try to keep this market at bay, because it definitely looks like we're on the upswing. Look at your feeder cattle markets on Monday. Real-time index late Monday was at 151.29, up 50 cents, and that's with huge movement in the Southern Plains and not a lot of big time Northern Plains sales. So that's strong market on a Monday on your high volume markets. Oklahoma National Stockyards in Oklahoma City, 11,800 head, good to see a big movement in Oklahoma City. That's your nation's feeder cattle market, and it will be until somebody else takes its place, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. But feeder steers over 800 pounds, steady to $4 higher. Under 800 pounds, $2 to $3 lower. And I was talking with some of my contacts on Monday there, and I've got some great contacts. Look forward to talking to them every week, and I like to share some of our conversations without really letting it known who it is. But I was talking to one contact up in Nebraska, and he was saying on these big yearling feeders, and not talking about the calves, but the few yearlings that are out there, they can't give these monster prices for them for too much longer, because they're going to miss out on that April board, because when it goes April to June, you get a big fall off every year, and we're going to see that again as we go into next year. But I said, well, gosh almighty, you don't have to keep those things that long. Make them weigh 16. And he says, yes, if you're going to give the kind of prices that they're giving for those yearling feeders, weighing in the 800 to 900 pound and beyond region, you got to make them weigh 16 or better. There's no way you can come out on them. Even after they get heavy and their efficiency drops off, you're still gaining, because every pound you put on is cheaper than what it's worth. So that's the way these guys are making those cattle work, those big yearlings, and those big yearlings won't quit you like these calves will. And that's another reason why your calves are not bringing the big price. But feeder heifers, $2 to $3 higher, so that's good. Your wheaty type cattle, steer calves, $1 to $4 higher in Oklahoma City. I can't express how good this wheat is in the southern plains. Heifer calves steady to $2 higher. I'm going to put heifers out on that wheat too, but look at some of this wheat that I've taken pictures of over the last month, up to 5-6 weeks here in the Texas Panhandle. It's fantastic, moving from early kind of dry, scratched in wheat up to when it was growing, but it had moisture but didn't have the warm temperatures. Now that the market is, or the weather has turned around, get some sunshine and some warm temperatures, just look at this wheat pop. And that's not even really rank wheat compared to what we see around. There's guys that have knee-high wheat out there, and they need some cattle to graze on it. Joplin Regional Stockyards, 5,500 head. Yearling feeder steers and heifers steady to $3 higher. Ball and calves steady to $5 lower. Now look at some of these prices on calves, and this is kind of in the southern plains, guys. That's where your better light calf prices are. Not so much in the northern plains, because the market is absolutely flooded with calves of all sizes up there. But you get down here, winter livestock auction in La Junta, Colorado. That's the southern plains, guys. They got hard red winter wheat in that region too, and especially when you go east from there into Kansas. But 109 head of 409 pound steers bring 221 in La Junta. And then Oklahoma National Stockyards, as I talked earlier, had a good sale there. And look at a calf price at Oklahoma City, and that's not where people really get carried away with an auction. Those guys know what's going on. They tend to keep their tempered bidding down a little bit, but still, when they want the calves, they got orders for them, they're going to give it all. 68 head of steers with National Livestock Commission in Oklahoma City, weighed 467 at $212. Wow, that's big. And look at a yearling market at Callaway Livestock Center in Kingdom City, Missouri. Exact center of Missouri right there. That's far enough away from your big calf movements to have a good price there. But actually, these cattle are going back into the ring of fire, back up into Nebraska to go on feed. But 58 head of steers, weighed 852 at $164.60. And that's your feeder flash for Tuesday.